Aloha and welcome to a League of Extraordinary Couples. Today, I'm honored to bring in a team of experts, a couple who walk their talk. Their interview today is called Couplehood. It's called Couples as a Team. And it's really about working together, getting the word out there, and really spreading the good news about healthy relationships. So Dr. Ellen Bader and Dr. Peter Pearson are joining us from an unusual location. They're on the road working in Milwaukee. So they're in their hotel room. We just want to make a disclaimer. This is not their normal background. But let's let the camera go on over to you as you greet our audience today, please.
Amy Elizabeth, hi and aloha, and good to be here. Thanks for inviting us.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. I am honored to greet and meet you again. It's been a while. I think we were just talking, it was Vancouver, BC for an international conference many, many moons ago. And you've been doing this work for over 30 years, bringing the good news as the founders, directors of the Couples Institute, and really helping people. And so you're the perfect couple to help us explore your relationship as you join this League of Extraordinary Couples. So wonderful to have you here. I'm going to get this crazy question over with, which is this artistic, creative exploration of, if your relationship were to be described as a landscape, how would you describe it? What picture would you paint for us today? Love to hear from you both.
Go ahead, Ellen.
Oh, I would describe it as beaches and mountains. I think of our relationship as a journey, a developmental journey, a journey that's full of wonderful moments and a journey that's full of some difficult peaks to climb at times.
You mean as in the Rocky Mountains?
Well, you could call it that if you want, but definitely, we have written a lot about relationship as a developmental process. And quite frankly, I think relationships and our relationship would certainly get very boring if we didn't have those challenges to face and tackle together. So that's my answer to your landscape question.
Okay, great. Thank you. Beaches and mountains. Go for it, Peter.
I would say that success in a relationship is not the absence of problems. I would say that success is that you don't have the same damn problem you had last year, but you have new and more interesting problems in front of you, as opposed to striving for a problem-free relationship.
Yeah. So what would be the landscape to describe that successful?
Well, I was thinking about that. And here's a quote that Ellen and I had in one of our books that I thought would fit for your question. And it is this. Pardon my reading. It is easy to be considerate and loving to your partner when the vistas are magnificent, when the sun is shining and breezes are gentle. But when it gets bone-chilling cold, you're hungry and tired and your partner is whining and sniveling about how you got them into this mess, that's when you get tested. Your leadership skills get tested and your own fortitude gets tested. You can whine with your partner, or you can become how you aspire to become when things get tough.
Whew. Well, my goodness, I think that just sums it up. That was a beautiful quote. Thank you for that. And we can't expect the vistas to be unobscured at all times. We can't strive for that perfection, but we can bring our best selves forward. And I love what you said about our leadership skills get challenged. So thank you for bringing that up. What would you say? Did you want to say more about that? Go for it.
Well, I was just saying, anybody who thinks they're fully developed or they know how to be in an interdependent, loving relationship when they connect with somebody needs to have their head examined.
Oh, do you know anybody who might do that?
We're hearing from two doctors here, folks. So just to highlight that you need to have your head examined if you think you got it all figured out. It is a developmental journey. And along this journey, if you had to me, this is the toughest question. If you had to distill it all down of what matters most in your relationship, what would you respond with?
Boy, there's so many things that it's hard to distill it. But I think what matters most in one way to me is that knowing Pete will be there to work out whatever comes up. And so, I mean, there are things like gratitude that matter to me a lot. And there are things like being nurturing and loving and caring and all those kinds of things. But, you know, it's a really good feeling. And this is why we talk a lot about couples as a team, because it's a really good feeling when you know the other person has your back, even when you're in conflict, or even when you're not agreeing, or, you know, you're disagreeing, or having something really tough to work out.
Yeah.
I think that goes under the category of commitment. And I think the Army Rangers and the Navy SEALs have a great credo, which is, I shall never leave a fallen comrade. And that is, and they get that because they've been tested and retested so many times. And that's why you never know for sure if your partner's got your back until you've been tested. And you've worked your way through that. And I would say one other thing for me that matters a heck of a lot is to try to keep your relationship interesting. And you have to be interested in keeping it interesting, or you start taking each other for granted, and then it's snoozeville.
Yeah. Well, I love that idea of keeping it interesting, having each other's back, working together as a team. And I remind myself of that daily in my personal life, because my two sons, Toby, Everett, Amy, and Mark, our names spell team. So we're up in,
or what?
Yeah, it's very cool. And so we, you know, that's how we reply to our text messages to our friend. Team will be there at 6 o'clock. So I love that response as a team, and we have to be invested and interested in keeping it interesting.
Well, so was that intentional? Did you start out to name everybody to make that work, or was that an accident that you realized we had?
It's serendipity. It was not intentional. Yeah.
Well, I really like the acronym for TEAM, which is Together Each Accomplishes More.
Ooh, I'm going to write that one down.
That's really true of marriage. Together, each accomplishes more.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. That sums it up as well. So when you're accomplishing more, you're out there keeping life interesting. I'm sure the static gets loud at times. I'm sure the negativity, the conflict, I'm guessing it happens, or correct me if I'm wrong, but when it does, how do you dissolve that? How do you work with the conflict, the negativity when it comes up?
Well, first of all, I'd say we have a lot of different ways, but we'll give you a few of them.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think one of the ones that we use, which is really where we think, again, about team and maybe different than a lot, is we think of it's important when you're, like when I'm getting really activated, it's important to give him a signal. And so we use, because of the idea that your thumb is actually your amygdala in your hand in that model. So
your fingers are like the prefrontal cortex, and here's your emotional brain underneath. And this is where all the stuff gets stored that creates mischief, all the flinches in a relationship.
Right.
So when I'm like ready to explode or ready to clobber him, I go like this.
And that becomes my signal that Ellen is doing her damnedest to stay centered. And if we're working as a team, and if I'm on top of my game, that tells me volumes that right now Ellen is trying to work to keep centered and avoid blasting me or disengaging. So that's my signal, if we're working as a team, for me to say to Ellen, oh, what would you like me to say right now? Or what would you like me to do right now? And the hallmark of a really good team is the willingness to allow yourself to be coached and to coach the other person. And what's cool about, if Ellen has enough wherewithal to grab her thumb like that, she automatically starts shifting from that flinch emotional brain into the prefrontal cortex.
Yeah.
And when I see that signal, then I have to exit from my defensive, flinching emotional brain into the prefrontal cortex and ask the question, oh, what would you like me to say? What would you like me to do? That kind of automatically starts breaking both of us out of being in that flinch pattern.
Love it. Love it, love it. Go for it, Ellen.
No, and so if I say to him, it would feel really good to me to hear, and that also is helping to move me out of the blasting. So I tell him what it would feel good to me to hear him say, and we have an understanding. I'm not, that whatever he's going to say is designed to calm the emotional brain, or maybe to take accountability for what he just did. It's not designed to, extract a decision or a commitment out of him.
Or a promise. You'll never say that again.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, what do you want right now that can be delivered?
Yeah. Yeah. I really hear that as an invitation to bring greater awareness of the moment and the needs and the potential for vaporizing to happen. And
Right.
I love that you brought up the hand diagram, and we haven't talked about that yet in this show. And so I would love to give our listeners a few more moments on that. This idea that we can literally flip our lids and we have to bring ourselves back online. Or as I hear you saying it, it almost sounds like being able to stay online. Like,
Right.
oh, it's starting to happen. I'm
Yeah.
going to give, what's the signal? I'm going to give you the signal. And so to have that level of awareness of, oh, I have enough sensory input from my own body. I can tell what's going on here. I'm going to give my beloved, my team member here, some information, because he's got my back or she's got my back. Am I getting you both?
Right. And if
Right.
you're working as a team, you'll do that. Working as a team doesn't mean you'll have conflict or you won't trigger each other, because you still will.
Right. Right. I love this.
I'll give you one more tip.
Yeah.
About dissolving negativity. And it's something that I first got from a Navy fighter pilot who used to land fighter planes on aircraft carriers. And then he went to flying private planes. And he said, when you are circling the airport, the control tower will say, when you start coming in, they'll say, state your intention. Like, are you going to land? Are you circling? Are you going to touch and go? Like, this could be like you have a student pilot. State your intention. Well, I said to him, oh, Mr. Fighter Pilot, guess what? You just got a great tip for your marriage. When things start to get heated up or vague or testy, say to your partner, state your intention. What's the main point you want to convey to me? It tends to get people organized a lot faster. I would say that when couples are arguing in my office, I'll let them go for a few minutes, and then I'll ask each of them to say, what do you think the main point your partner's trying to convey to you? About half the time, they will say, well, I think they're trying to say X, and they're wrong. So half the partners don't even know what the heck the main point is their partner's communicating. About 40% of the time they'll guess, and they will guess wrong. Mm-hmm. So about 15% of the time they'll say, well, I think they're trying to tell me this. And I'll say about 15% of the time they'll say, that's right. 85% of the time, we have no idea what the main point is our partner's trying to communicate to us. So
wow.
Your intention gets you focused and refocused really fast.
Wow. I love this so much. I love the numbers, like what a wake-up call, right? That 85% of the time we could be missing each other in that. And that.
Okay, Amy Elizabeth, 85% of the time we do miss each other in a heated argument.
Yeah. I hear you loud and clear. Your intention is for me to really get that. That is.
Yeah, he wants to be sure you get it.
Yeah, no kidding.
All right. Well, I get it. And I also get the invitation for me to give this interview to my brothers who have the military background, who will be able to understand your language, because it tunes in for a certain population out there of like, yeah, okay, state my intention. This is where I want to go. And I work with a lot of people in the spiritual realms, the energetic worker realms, and the light workers out there. And they say, well, I know my intention, but it's all internal. It's all right. And what I really hear you saying is enough of that. Make it verbal, really
and clear.
Well, yeah. I mean, I've sat through so many discussions between couples in my office, and somebody will just launch into something, and their partner makes a giant interpretation about what they want. It's completely missing what the person speaking is trying to get to. And then the person trying to fix it or solve the problem is frustrated. The person speaking is frustrated. And if they just got on the same page to begin with about what the intention was, they could each save themselves a ton of grief.
And basically, there's just a few categories of intention. Like, I want to vent, I want to blame, I want you to listen to me, I want to problem solve, I want to be understood, I'd like to be empathized with. Just give me empathy. That's all I want. Don't solve the problem. Feel sorry for me right now. Life right now is hell. Give me some empathy.
Whew, yeah, if only my husband had been able to say that the other night when I was trying to fix all his problems, I think it would have gone a little more smoothly. Or if I had been a little bit more supportive and reflective of what's your intention, honey? What do you need right here? Because it's hard to see our beloveds in pain. And I think I really...
We want to fix it, and sometimes fixing means listen.
Right, yeah. For me, sometimes the most radical act is to do nothing and zip my lip and open my heart.
Oh, Lordy, does that take some effort?
It's huge. Yeah. It's huge. I'm humbled to say that. So thank you. Thank you for that tip. And what's your intention? I think that's a great one. And Ellen, I love the thumb. It almost reminds me, well, never mind. When my kids were young, the sign language, do you remember that one?
Oh, yeah, I'll give you sign language, honey.
Okay. All right. Well, we're having some good laughs here as we explore this fascinating world of relationships and what you do with each other. So thank you for letting us dive in there and understand that. Any other tips around dissolving conflict before we move on?
Should we do, what do you think?
You can. I was going to say one other thing.
Why don't you say one other thing?
When you say, okay, here, honey, here's what I'd like to hear you say. If Pete will say it, or I do this with couples a lot, whenever that gets said, not just once, but actually gets said 3 times.
Right, thank you.
It's an enormous negativity dissolver. Because the first time somebody says it, it's often a little stilted, or they feel like they're being demanded on or controlled. So it's not said always in the most kind, nurturing voice. And then when it's said a second time, it begins to come in a little deeper. And by the third time, usually he's a lot softer. He realizes I'm not extracting some big, horrible thing from him. And so he can say it in a softer, more nurturing way, and I can let it in a more nurturing way. So it does feel like we really are a team. You get to have that experience of walking through it together that feels more team-like, rather than we just try to rush it off the table really fast.
Yeah, I'm glad you added that. That 3 time is magical.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, one more, Amy Elizabeth.
Sure.
All right, here's one more. And it's really surprising. All you have to do is remember 4 words. That's it, 4 words. And you can turn a fight into a discussion if you remember 4 words. If Ellen says to me, at first, she says, Pete, you are the most selfish, narcissistic, inconsiderate person on this planet. Nothing you do shows any sensitivity to what I care about or think about. Now, if she says that, chances are my response will be a little bit defensive.
Yeah.
I would think
And
so.
chances are that's not the opening statement for a good discussion. So if Ellen adds 4 words, now see if you can figure out what these 4 words are. Pete, you are the most selfish, inconsiderate, self-centered person who cares nothing about himself and nothing about what I do matters to you. What do you think? Adding those 4 words, what do you think invites a discussion instead of a fight?
Yeah. It just dissolved it like that. Yeah. Very good. Very good. What do you think as a follow-up? And ideally, you're not doing the character assassination to begin with, but
exactly. And if you feel like you got to blast your partner, blast them, and then add, well, what do you think? And it softens it immediately.
Well, and it demonstrates that he's not stuck on, or I'm not stuck on the thing that's being blasted.
Yeah. Yeah. Not stuck on it, not attached to it, not wedded to it. I love that. And I really, really appreciate, and I want to highlight that you're both bringing up the softening. I talk a lot about that, the tenderizing of my heart. And when that happens, anything's possible in terms of the connection. So thank you for that. So with that, we'll use that as a bridge, a segue to our last question, which is, how do you deepen connection? I'm sure there's a myriad of things there, but if you were to pick 1, 2, 3 things, I love 3. 3 is the magic number, yeah? How do you deepen connection?
Separate houses, separate vacations, separate friends. Does that work?
I don't think he meant what he just said.
Okay.
Actually, I mean, there's so many different kinds of connection, but one of the things that deepens connection for me is when we really do take on challenges together and we figure out what role we're each playing. We get very co-creative together. So, I mean, we've always been or try to be on the cutting edge of the couples therapy field or the relationship couples growth field. And we're always like trying to learn and do things new and different. And when you're in that new and different, you don't have mentors or role models. And so you're figuring it out as you go. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, recently we've taken on doing a lot of work with entrepreneurs who are working with their spouses. And there really aren't a lot of specialists who specialize in that interface between the entrepreneur and their partner. There are couples therapists who work with the marriage, and there's business consultants who work with the business, but that place where those two intersect. So anyway, that's, when we're working and creating together, that's one way of deepening connection.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
how about for you, Peter?
I would say that too, when you are working together, when you live together, there's so many opportunities both to collide, but also to get in alignment with each other and pulling in the same direction toward an external focus. And so I think aligning the creativity, the energies, the value systems, the priorities, when they line up, that's pretty special.
Mm-hmm. Great. Yeah. I love that idea of having the external focus out there and both of you pulling together. It reminds me of one of my activities here. I go paddling a 6-person canoe, and we may have all different ideas, but we're heading in the same direction. And when we can get that pace and that rhythm going, that's just what that reminded me of as you were saying that. Into uncharted territories, right, Ellen? Like sometimes we don't know where we're headed and we don't have mentors or guides always, leading the way, but to go into the new and exciting and be interested and invested in keeping things interesting, to kind of circle back to the beginning of our interview here. I hear that. Go ahead.
I would say one other thing, which we're very involved in a project of building schools in refugee communities in Kenya.
Awesome.
And now beginning to bring some counseling into the schools for the kids who've been traumatized. And it's a really, new thing in these communities. And so we're running into all kinds of very interesting and unusual challenges. A couple months ago, a bunch of the parents thought that the counselor was a spy. And at the beginning, when she first was there, kids had always been taught, don't go into a room with a stranger. So can you hold a counseling appointment in an office? So anyway, that's just some examples of things that you just have to be willing to let go and learn and be open, because if we try to impose Western values, forget it.
Right. Wow. I am thrilled that you just brought that up, and I just got chicken skin, which is what we, it's just like the chills of like, yay, yay, yay. Because what you were talking about is the perfect place for us to press pause on our interview here, because I am passionate about partnership, about having the healthiest relationships we can possibly have, to get resourced enough so that we can essentially get over ourselves and get out there and help the world and be a force for good. And what you're talking about is what Larry and Barbara Dossi talked about in our interviews. And, it's like we have to, as a couple, when we work together as a team, have a greater passion and purpose, I think, to be that external aim to keep us moving forward. So doing the work with entrepreneurs, doing the work, having counseling, jumping the cultural hurdles of what is counseling, and being alone in a room with a stranger you don't know. And wow, my hat's off to you. Thank you for doing the good work and paving the way for so many of us. I know my husband and I, with our hearts of gold, want to get out there and help. We want to preserve public libraries and save the Aloha Hawaii Lifeways culture, and do the good work and not just pick up the trash on the beach. That's the downriver cleanup. Get more proactive. So plastic free. That's what I'm working on this weekend in my spare time, is how to help our island be plastic free.
High five to you guys.
Maybe sometime you'll come to Kenya with us.
Yeah, I'd love it. Absolutely love it. I believe there's a greater passion and purpose to get on with our overflowing, effervescent love, because it's changing the world one relationship at a time and growing that conscious awareness. So pure delight to get to know you both and share the humor, share the ideas. There's a lot of wonderful takeaways here for us. Look forward to seeing the interview again. And you have a free gift for our listeners today. Could you take a moment to talk about Return to Eden?
Sure, we're giving it's a fun study guide that we created originally with an author who wrote a book about relooking at Adam and Eve and understanding their relationship from a very different lens than what we were most taught through the Bible originally. But the study guide is lots of take-home exercises to do with your partner. And it doesn't have a religious focus as much as it has a focus on you developing yourself with your partner.
And discovering different components of who you are, how you are together, and how you are separately, and how to deal with disagreements together as a team.
Beautiful. Sounds like a perfect companion to our little taste of that today in our interview. So I invite our couples and listeners to look into that more. We'll have the link below in the email. And my very best to you. Thank you again for your time in your busy travel schedule as you're helping to save our world. So
thank you, Amy Elizabeth. This was great. Thank you.
Fun to do. Thank you.
Thank you.